Hey everyone, welcome to the channel, and considering we're living in a world where we're being told to wear 2 masks on our face just to stay alive, it probably comes as no surprise that our Lord and Savior, Elon Musk, the Messiah, has just recently invested $1.5 billion into Bitcoin, and the world is losing their mind. He's flown in with his Tesla cape wrapped around his shoulders and given the big middle finger to all the old brains on Wall Street. And not only has Elon and Tesla invested in Bitcoin, but they've also announced that in the future, they're potentially going to accept Bitcoin as a form of payment for their vehicles, which has massive implications. And suddenly, out of nowhere, maybe this crypto hype is actually starting to gain some momentum, starting to grow some legs. Well, not real legs, but you know what I mean. But guys, let's be honest, in retrospect, it was inevitable. Man, this guy has way too much power, but in the best kind of way. And in case that's not enough excitement, the plot thickens even further when you start to think about the effect that that can have on crypto going forward. Because now that we've got one of the biggest companies in the world diving headfirst into Bitcoin, we might find that some of these big CEOs on Wall Street and around the world will start to dip their toes into the pool as well. Hell, if Elon can do it, and with such an aggressive position, if we don't start to consider it, we might fall behind and get left in his dust. When it comes to these sort of investments, the early bird gets the worm. You don't want to be late to the party, because by then, all of these things become commonplace and widely accepted, and you miss out on the bulk of the growth, which comes in the early phases. And in classic Musk fashion, the fourth musketeer, Tesla, are once again leading the way. They are leading us potentially into a new age where digital currencies are just as widely accepted as regular currencies. And for Tesla stock and Bitcoin, the web spins even deeper than just the prices. While we've already seen a massive spike in these prices, which have also come down over the last few days, we're forgetting one very important point, and that is the free publicity for both of these entities. And that's going to open big doors for new investors who will start flowing in. Without paying anything at all for advertising, this big news, Tesla being the biggest company to invest in Bitcoin so far, is going to be plastered all over the news, all the news headlines. It's going to be Elon Musk with Tesla and a big fat Bitcoin right next to it. And that can only be good news for both of those entities. And that is free publicity, and no publicity is bad publicity. I think I said publicity a few too many times, but you get the point. The point is, all this attention for Bitcoin and Tesla can only be good news for both of them. As far as Bitcoin goes, this goes a long way to validate what they've been trying to achieve for a long time. They've been the outcast. Cryptocurrencies have been on the outside looking in, and now they're just starting to make some moves. Now, another fascinating piece of the puzzle for Tesla is that in their recent filing with the SEC, which is in very fancy words that I'll break down for you, they've stated that if the price of Bitcoin goes up, they won't have to pay any taxes on those gains until they sell, and they won't reflect those changes on their books. But if Bitcoin's value goes down, they'll be able to claim that as losses in profitability and will get a tax write-off. So basically, nothing on their books change when the price of Bitcoin goes up, but when it goes down, they get a tax write-off. Hot damn, that is so cheeky, so brilliant, and legal. Not that I would know. I'm not a lawyer or an accountant or a financial advisor. Do your own due diligence. But none of that really matters if Bitcoin goes to the moon anyway. Now, the biggest question on us regular people's lips is, what is the repercussion for Bitcoin's future? What is the flow-on effect going to be? Because once one of the big dogs sitting in the big dog chair at the big dog table, stop talking about dogs, once they see a move like this, it becomes important not to fall behind. Think about all the institutional investors and hedge fund investors who are trying every year to get 10 to 15%, sometimes more, for themselves and for their clients. That might not cut it anymore when some of the investors out there can invest in Bitcoin and get upwards of 100, 200, 300% gains in a year. That 10 to 15% suddenly is becoming a really big problem. How are they supposed to compete with these other funds that are investing way more aggressively in way faster growing growth assets? They can't. So now they've got a real conundrum on their hands, and considering the ball is already rolling, it won't be long before people start to follow in Tesla's footsteps, not because they're copying them, but because it's the right thing to do by their clientele if they want to achieve the gains that they are going to be expecting. Bitcoin has proven in recent times to outperform most asset classes and has outperformed most traditional forms of investing. And clearly through these actions, Elon Musk and Tesla think that this is the best place for their money to sit and the strongest investment to get the best returns for them. And if other people start to have this same feelings, that will be a massive flow-on effect, and the floodgates for Bitcoin investors will absolutely open and the dams will burst. There's a new kid on the block, and his name is crypto. Kryptonite. I couldn't quite think of a kryptonite joke, but you guys can fill in the blanks for me. A big problem that these massive companies have that have billions of dollars in cash is the more that sits there and the less that is invested, the more they lose to inflation and their buying power diminishes. That's why it's always important to have as much money as you can invested for institutional investors and for people like you and me. It's important to invest our money to get the best returns, and that's why Elon Musk decided to invest 15%, yes, 15% of Tesla's cash reserves into Bitcoin. And in that filing with the SEC, they stated that in January 2021, we updated our investment policy to provide us with more flexibility to further diversify and maximize returns on our cash. Guys, maximize returns. That's huge language. That means that Tesla and Elon Musk believe that this is the best place for them to put their money to get the maximum returns. This isn't a gimmick. This isn't just somewhere to store their money. This is a really aggressive play to make as much money as they possibly can going into the future, where they'll also start to take payments on their cars in Bitcoin. And they've actually stated that they don't have to sell those positions, which means that they can just keep growing and growing their positions in Bitcoin without actually cashing any out. So we can watch them grow and grow and grow. Very, very clever, very, very sneaky. And just quietly, what a compliment for Bitcoin that's starting to pick up speed and build momentum. It's starting to feel like a more legitimate option for people now that the big dogs of the world, stop talking about dogs, are getting on board. Now, here's an interesting point that some Elon haters, in fact, not even Elon haters, just some people have noticed as something that might be hypocritical, is that Bitcoin has typically not been a very eco-friendly company. But I'm starting to think that that's not necessarily true anymore. From the research that I've done, it looks like back in the day, cryptocurrency mining used to be quite damaging for the environment, but it seems like recently, over the recent years, the processes and technologies have improved to diminish that and starting to become much more eco-friendly. And considering Elon Musk is such an advocate for helping the environment and reducing our carbon footprint, in fact, he's dedicated many of his enormous businesses to that very idea, it would surprise me very, very much if he didn't do his due diligence and make sure that this was actually an environmentally friendly decision, as well as a fiscal one. Fiscal? Weird word to use, but I'm going with it. Here's one possible downside for Tesla. Anyone who was already invested in Tesla is now kind of invested in Bitcoin. Sure, it's only a tiny, tiny portion, maybe less than 0.25%, but nonetheless, it's still a fact. And while that may make a lot of investors very happy, I'm sure it will make a lot, maybe even more, unhappy, because it's definitely not what they signed up for. If they wanted to invest in Bitcoin, they would have invested in Bitcoin, but that's not what they did. They invested in Tesla, and now they are kind of invested in what Bitcoin has to offer and how it performs. That may just be triggering for a lot of the investors. Probably just until they realize how good of a decision it turned out to be, but we'll see. I remember when I finished high school in 2008, only a few months later, Bitcoin hit the map in a big way. And at the time, I thought it was a hoax. I thought it was a joke. I didn't understand it. It sounded ridiculous. The only way to have Bitcoin was to mine it, save it on your USB. It was a whole ordeal. But here we are 12 years later, and it's still kicking on. And not only is it kicking on, it's gaining momentum, and it's gained attention and an investment from one of the biggest companies in the world today. So as for investing in Bitcoin, while it's always been on my radar, it's something that's really perked my ears up in the last few days. I've been interested for many years, and more as the days, literally days, go by. But this is just such a big move. But what I will say is that if you are entertaining investing in Bitcoin or any cryptocurrency for that matter, please make sure you do it with money that you can afford to lose. The important thing to realize is that even though Tesla put an enormous amount of money in, for them, it's not an enormous percentage. It's 15% of their cash position. It's not even going to affect their day-to-day operations. So that needs to be the way that you treat it. It needs to be something that you can comfortably afford to lose. Because while the gains may be epic, the losses may hurt you just as bad. Guys, thanks so much for joining me. Subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed this video. Give it a big thumbs up to help me grow this channel, and I'll catch you next time. See ya!